guys, how's it going? Today's video is one that's out a little bit later than I usually have it, but that is my December reading wrap-up. December was an okay reading month. I read 5 books, which I was planning to read more, but considering how busy things got, I think it's pretty good. So it could have been better, but it could have been worse. The first book I read was actually an audiobook, but that was The Chalk Man by C.J. Tudor. I gave this book a 9 out of 10, and I actually already talked about it because it was one of my favorite books of 2019. It's a thriller, mystery. Essentially, there's a young girl that's murdered, and it's the mystery of who did it, etc. There's all these chalk drawings that this group of kids used to draw all around town, and that's been found at the scene of the crime, so you're trying to figure out, which one of these kids is connected, and why, and how, and all that stuff. I really liked that there was a lot of other mysteries going around. Like, it wasn't just this one mystery and we're solving it. It kind of jumped around a lot in the timeline, and you get some from the kids around the time of the murder, you get some of them as adults, and it was just really interesting to see that going back and forth, but also there were so many other things that kept happening that you were trying to figure out how they fit in, and I really liked that. It was really layered. There are a number of trigger warnings in this book, but there was child abuse, some sexual assault, a lot of talk of abortions, a dog dies. So the book was definitely not an easy read, but I kind of liked that. It was really dark and disturbing in a lot of ways. I did find the ending of the main mystery a little bit predictable, like I guessed it pretty early on, but there were so many other things going on that I didn't guess the other, 97 million mysteries going on. So it really didn't ruin the book at all for me. But overall, I thought the book was really interesting. It was really dark and creepy at times, and I thought that the layers and layers of mystery were really well done. Next, I read A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. I made a video about this, all about why Scrooge is misunderstood and why this is a terrible book that teaches kids to bully, and I honestly love this book though. It has always been one of my favorites. It's one of the few Christmassy things I actually enjoy, so I gave it a 9 out of 10. That video was really fun to make, but there's a couple dislikes on it, and I don't usually get many dislikes on my video because I think this is a really positive community, and I don't think I'm a big enough channel to have people watch me that don't already like similar content, if that makes sense. But that book had a handful of dislikes, and I don't know if it's because people just don't think I'm funny, which is crazy because I'm super funny, or if they thought that I was serious and disagreed that I was hating on this book. So I don't know, but to clear the air, I love this book. I just think it's wrong for your dead friends to send ghosts to bully you into changing who you are as a person. That's just me. I don't really have that much more to say about this book. It's just a Christmas classic that was really fun to read, and I enjoyed rereading the original source material because I've seen so many adaptations and different versions of this that it was just really fun to get back to the basics and read the original story. Next, I read Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. This one wasn't one that was on my TBR, but I was just in a really Charles Dickens mood after reading Christmas Carol. This is another reread. I read it like 10 years ago, and it's just been a while, and there's some parts that I kind of forgot. So I reread it. I gave it a 9 out of 10. I love this story. This is the story of a young man named Pip. You follow him from the time he's a young child until his early 20s, and it's essentially just his life, and he starts off in a really poor, pretty much crappy life, and then he gets a couple opportunities with this rich old kind of crazy woman, and then he comes into a large sum of money, and he's not supposed to know who it was, and it's just basically his adventures going from being a young poor kid to suddenly being a wealthy gentleman, to discovering who he is and what he wants and what really matters in life. And I just love it. I love Charles Dickens. I love his writing. I love the characters. I love Pip. I love Joe. And it was just such a sweet book, and I love it so much. So 9 out of 10. The next book I read, if you couldn't guess from my shirt, is In a Mirror by Emily Bourne. Emily Bourne, if you somehow don't know, is another author-tuber here. She is so fun to watch. She is a delight. She has amazing energy and really interesting thoughts, and just watching her journey has been so fascinating. And this is her debut novel. I actually won a giveaway, so I got the book, a water bottle, and this shirt. But I was a little bit nervous because now I have Team Charlie merch, but I hadn't read the book yet, and I was nervous what if I liked Brittany more? And even though I loved both girls, I am indeed Team Charlie. I love Charlie so much. This is a story of twin girls, Brittany and Charlie, and it's essentially them in high school and just kind of figuring out who they are. Brittany wants to be the popular kid and is kind of just going through changes and trying to fit in with the cool crowd. And Charlie is a lot less stressed out about those things. She's more academic, but slowly more things start to fall apart, and it's just so much fun watching these two girls just grow, and it was really interesting, and I liked the dual point of view, so you get Brittany and Charlie in alternating chapters, and I really liked that because the two girls were so different, and even like their voices were really distinct that you never wondered which character you were reading. There were also a ton of other characters, there was a lot of different diversity, and it was really interesting to read. The one thing though is that you get so many little like sneak peeks into all of the side characters, because that was one thing. All of the side characters are important. Like there's not just background character number 72. You know, they all have something about them, and they all, even though you don't explain it on page, you know that they have full lives, like they're full characters even if you only see them for brief glimpses here and there. But I wish that I would have seen more of them, because so many of them, you got little hints that like their story was so interesting, but because this isn't their story, you don't get to really explore it. And while I completely understand that, it would have completely derailed the plot if we would have gotten all of that, but as a curious person, I really wanted to know. So I'm hoping that in the rest of the books we get to see maybe a little bit more of some of these other characters and get more of their backstory and figure out some of those things, but all in all, it was just such a great book. I gave it a 9.5 out of 10. To be fair, I do consider Emily a friend of mine, so maybe I'm biased, but honestly, I would highly recommend this book. It's just a cute YA contemporary with a lot more like deeper themes going on, and it's a really great book to read, so I highly recommend it. And last but definitely not least was Wildcat by J.P. Harker. I loved this book. Another 9.5 out of 10. I received this book for free from the author. He sent me an email back in like September. Also, side note, he addressed the email to me and the 3 cats by name, and like brownie points right there. But he sent me an email, told me that he thought that I would really enjoy this book, told me what it was about, and asked if I'd be interested in receiving a free copy in exchange for an honest review. And I said heck yeah, because it sounded super interesting, super up my alley. Because Canadian shippings, I didn't get it until like late October, and then NaNoWriMo happened, and it was... You all know that November was a rough month. So I finally read it in December, and I adored it. I'm going to be making a full-length review on it, because like there was just too many things to mention. It's the story of Rhea, who is from one of the quote-unquote barbarian tribes, and her tribe gets conquered by the more civilized group, and it's essentially her life. It was honestly so interesting just to follow her, and she just felt like such a genuine character. I really loved that there really wasn't a good team and a bad team. They were both right and wrong in their own ways, and their actions all made sense for themselves. And I really liked that, because I don't like when fantasy is too black and white. Like, there isn't a culture that is just purely evil. That doesn't make sense, unless you involve magic, because magic can make a lot of things make sense. But I really liked that everything just felt so real and so genuine, and the world building was really extensive, but it never felt overwhelming. Like, I understand their religion, their politics, their culture, their geography, like their history. It was all very well built and crafted for all these different places, but it was never info dumpy. It was always woven in really seamlessly and naturally, and it was just really, really well done, a very well crafted book. It really shines in a lot of like high fantasy ways. One thing though is that the 3 kind of, I would say, sections of the book, like 3 acts I guess, felt really distinct. Like they were a little bit too abrupt. So I kind of felt like it was 3 novellas all bound up into one, but the pacing for the rest of it was really good, so it was still great. My other minor complaint is that I suck at names, and a lot of these characters have really unique and very hard to pronounce names. They didn't stick in my head all that well, so there was a couple times that I would just get confused because there's such a huge cast of characters who in the world we were talking about. That's one thing that if you do read this book, and I definitely think that you should, try to keep track of the names in your head, because there's some that are kind of similar enough that I got them confused. And they're not really all that similar, it's just I suck at names. But honestly, this book was so well crafted. The biggest thing that really struck me is that nothing felt convenient, if that makes sense. There's a lot of books that things happen to line up a certain way or helpful coincidences. But this book didn't have any of that. I felt like everything made complete logical sense but still wasn't predictable, and every character reacted to something in a way that made complete sense. I actually ordered the next 2 books from Amazon before I finished reading this one because I knew that I would need to read them. So that's really all I'm going to say right now, because I could go on, and I will in my full-length review. So probably next week or the week after? I have to check my filming schedule, but anyway, stay tuned for a full-length review of this book. But in the meantime, just know that it is honestly amazing, great high fantasy and battles and different cultures, and highly, highly recommended. You should honestly check it out. And that was my December reading. So I didn't get to all the books in my original TBR, but I'm really happy with the books that I did get to, and it's definitely an improvement from previous months. And also, 4 out of the 5 books I read were ones that were already on my shelf or were recently on my shelf. So that was very good because I've been falling behind with my physical TBR. So all in all, I am really happy with the reading month, and everything I read, I loved. I just realized that I didn't rate anything less than 9 stars. That's probably why it feels like such a great reading month, even though it was less books than I anticipated. So anyway, that is all for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, please click the like button to let me know, and subscribe to stay up to date with the rest of my videos. I post videos every Wednesday and Sunday, usually reading or writing related. And if you read any of these books and want to chat about them, comment down below. If you want to talk about anything more spoilery, then you can message me on Twitter. My Twitter is always linked in the description. So I hope to see you guys next time, and until then, have a great day. Bye!